Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim Defede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim Defede. Late last month, retired Lieutenant Colonel Alex Vindman jumped into the Florida Senate race against Republican Ashley Moody, and it immediately reset a contest that many had written off as being an easy win for Republicans. Here was part of his announcement.
The last time you saw me was here, swearing an oath to tell the truth about a president who broke his. See, my family came to America as refugees to escape tyranny. And I sure as hell was not going to bow down to some wannabe tyrant. This president unleashed a reign of terror and retribution, not just against me and my family, but against all of us. Today, our country is in chaos. Thug militias attacking citizens, tariffs pushing prices sky high, healthcare premiums through the roof. And Florida homeowners are being absolutely screwed because Ashley Moody caved to the big insurance companies. They put Moody in the Senate to be a yes vote for Trump and the billionaires. She's not Florida Senator, she's theirs. I'm Alex Vindman, and I'm running to be your voice in the Senate.
Now, in the 24 hours after he got into the race, Vindman raised $1.7 million, an impressive haul that made folks take notice. The next day, Jennifer Jenkins, who had been the leading candidate for the Democratic nomination, dropped out of the race and endorsed Vindman. And some experts moved the race from safely Republican to likely Republican. But make no mistake, Florida is still very much a red state. There are nearly 1.5 million more registered Republican voters than Democratic ones, and Moody has the support of Donald Trump. So does Vindman have the realistic chance of winning? And perhaps more importantly, why is he running? Well, why don't we ask him? Joining us here in the studio for his first Florida interview since entering the race is retired Lieutenant Colonel Alex Vindman. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Jen.
We spoke back in May. And, at the time, we were hearing rumblings that you were thinking about it. And one of the things that we talked about is whether or not you would think about getting in this race. And you said, I think Democrats need to win in some very difficult places in order to wrestle back control. I'm not sure if Florida is the place to do that. It might be. And then you went on to tell me, I don't think the state is too far gone by any means. I certainly don't believe that. I just don't know if I'm the right person to do that or if that's the right role for me. So why did you decide that you are the right person to do that?
When we spoke back then, I don't think I was seriously considering a run for U.S. Senate. My career and my life has been one of public service, so it's always been a question I ask myself, where can I best serve? And at the time, I thought I was doing a lot of things with regards to national security and defense, but that doesn't seem to match the moment today. I feel that this state and this country is headed in the wrong direction. I feel like there is a crisis. We're in the middle of a crisis in which people don't feel safe in their homes. They don't feel safe in their communities. Life in Florida is increasingly unaffordable. I live here with my wife and daughter. I moved my parents down here about 6 months after I arrived. My dad's 93, my mom is 78. I'm paying half his rent. So I think life in Florida is out of reach. But it's really a combination of the chaos, the corruption, the unprecedented corruption, where the burden is shifting in this fixed system from working Floridians, burdens being placed on them while mega corporations are profiting. And for me, in my life of service, I couldn't sit on the sidelines. I had to come back in and see if I could properly represent the 23 million Floridians and see if we could put a fighter on the side of Floridians here.
Was there a moment, though? I mean, there has been, from the Democratic perspective, many outrages since Donald Trump returned to office 12 months ago. Yeah. So when we talked in May, you had predicted some things that have come true in terms of him using, military into cities, those sorts of things. But was there some pivotal moment? Was it Minneapolis? Was it what happened with ICE? Was there something that really made you decide, I can't sit on the sidelines, I have to get in?
I'm a military strategist. I look at things, my heart was in for service, but my head was looking at about where can I best serve, and watching things unfold, whether it's the November elections that told the tale of an electorate increasingly disgusted with the direction this country is taking, and I think that's completely replicated within Florida. Whether that's what's going on in Minneapolis, I think what look like paramilitaries, but acting like thugs, not trying to secure the community, but ramping up and escalating, not being properly trained to do that role. They have a limited role to protect the population. Those folks are getting the signals from the very top in a corrupt scheme to put pressure on communities. That's not something that sits well with me. It's these different factors that all came together, and my recognition that Florida is ready for a different direction. We are not. I know that the numbers on the surface, 1.5 million Republicans, tell one story, but that's not what I'm seeing from the community. What I'm seeing from the community is that they want somebody that will be their fighter, somebody that will be a fighter in Floridians' corner, not serving the special interests like Ashley Moody has been doing since being appointed to be a yes vote for their entire agenda.
Well, we'll talk more about that, but I want to sort of clarify certain things because the RNC came out very strongly against you after you made your announcement. One RNC spokesman referred to you as a carpetbagger and a grifter. Yeah. So let's go through a couple of things, and I want you to sort of be clear about when did you move to Florida?
So after 21 and a half years in the military telling me exactly where to live, all different corners of the world, Florida was the first place I got a chance to choose where to live. I got a chance to plant my family here and try to get us on the course to blossom. We moved here in February 2023, so 3 years ago this month. 6 months later, I moved my dad, 93, and my mom, 78. Same reason that many pensioners move here. So our story is not that different than the vast majority of Floridians that are moving from different corners here for the purposes of planting a seed in an environment of sun, happiness, and affordability. And that's not really where we're headed right now. We're headed in a direction where it's increasingly out of reach.
Well, let me just clear up a couple of things. Are you registered to vote in Florida?
Yes, I am.
Have you voted in Florida?
I have.
Which elections have you voted in?
I voted in every election since I've gotten here.
So since 23. So you voted in 24, the governor's race, or not the governor's race, but the various races in 24 and on forward. Okay,
so I think it's, frankly, this is a good point. I think sometimes folks really focus in on either the national elections every 4 years or midterm elections. I take it out as my responsibility as a U.S. citizen to participate in every election, and if I'm able to do that, I vote in every election as is my responsibility as a citizen.
All right. So you've been in Florida for 3 years. What makes you believe, though, that you're best suited only in the state for 3 years? There are parts of this state that are completely foreign to you, I would imagine. I mean, I'm sure that during this campaign you will visit throughout the entire state, but there are parts of the state that you may not know very well. Why do you think you're better suited to represent the state of Florida than Ashley Moody, who grew up here?
Well, I think Floridians expect somebody that will be in their corner, that will be a fighter for them, and not just beholden to special interests, not an automatic yes vote for a party that she is representing. I think Floridians are looking for somebody that's been a career public servant, like I have, served in postings overseas, served in combat, received a Purple Heart. I don't think they're looking for a career politician. They're looking for somebody that will do what I have pledged to do, which is end the chaos, crush corruption, and cut costs. I think that factor is much more important than any other factor. I think my biography probably speaks more to who I am, what I've delivered for this country, and what I'll deliver for the state. That's paramount.
So let's talk a little bit about your backstory. You were born in Kyiv when Ukraine was still part of the Soviet Union. Your father fled with you and your twin brother Eugene when you were both 4. You were part of the Soviet wave of Soviet Jews that sort of left and settled in the United States. I believe you grew up in Brooklyn, joined the military, was awarded a Purple Heart when an IED blew up your convoy in Iraq, and you were serving on the National Security Council during President Trump's first term when that fateful phone call happened in 2019, in which you were monitoring the call for the NSC because of your role with the Security Council, and you overheard Donald Trump appearing to threaten Vladimir Zelensky and asking for an investigation of Joe Biden and possibly withholding military aid as a result. You reported that. That led to Trump's first impeachment. That story that you've lived, that you wrote about in Here Right Matters. This was your first book that you came out. How does that experience and what happened to you, because you got fired by Donald Trump eventually, you faced retribution from Donald Trump. How much does that experience play into your decision making to run for Senate?
I think that whole biography speaks to one fact: somebody that's committed to service, somebody that's committed to America's defense, somebody that's committed to making sure that we have the strongest team possible in a very, very dangerous world. And I think that biography also specifically talks to somebody that's willing to speak truth to power. It doesn't make a difference of which party, Democrat or Republican. I've been critical of both. I call things the way I see it, balls and strikes, simply. If I see something wrong, I'm going to speak up. So I think that particular component is what I think Floridians are looking for. I think there are segments of this population that feel deeply under siege just looking around what's happening in their communities. Somebody that's going to be a fighter in their corner. Somebody that's going to deal with a system that's increasingly leaning against ordinary families, against working people, and for the ultra wealthy. Somebody that will make sure that they represent the interests of the Floridian people and not the elites, corporations, or the ultra wealthy, which is exactly what Ashley Moody has been doing for her tenure as an appointed senator.
You have been critical of Ashley Moody, as you just were there, and you raised, for instance, the issue of stock transactions. That was in your announcement video. Do you have any evidence that she used any insider information to financially benefit herself?
What's absolutely clear is, if you look at her financial disclosures, is that she executed more than $1 million in corporate stock trades while having access to insider information that only Congress gets. That's wrong. That should be illegal. One of the things I intend to do as a senator is to make sure that the system is not rigged for the powerful and ultra wealthy, and I will vote to pass legislation to ban stock trading for elected officials.
Well, it's actually a bill that Ashley Moody is currently sponsoring. Ashley Moody, along with Kristen Gillibrand, the Democrat from New York, currently has legislation that would ban stock trading by members of Congress and their family. Again, so I go back to the question: if Ashley Moody is acknowledging that this is something that needs to change, do you have any proof that she's done anything improper, though, with that insider information that you sort of claim?
It's absolutely clear to me that she is now conscious of the fact that there is a viable opponent, and she's behaving. Her political spidey senses have kicked in, and she's now signing on to things that she was earlier rejecting. I know that she wasn't in favor of this ban previously, and that she signed on to it just recently because she has a competitor that is against it. I think the bottom line is, just look at what she's done. She's been an automatic yes vote for the entire entire extremist Republican agenda. She did that not just in the Senate, but she did that as when she was acting as an attorney general. She wasn't serving the interests of Floridians. She was serving the interests of the powerful political elites. And I think Floridians are looking for somebody different. They're looking for somebody that's not a career politician. This is my first time running. But if you set that aside and you look at my record, 21 and a half years serving in the military, serving the American people, pledging to defend this country against enemies, foreign and domestic, my record speaks for itself. Ashley Moody's record is fundamentally flawed, and we're going to test that in this election. My fight is to prove to Floridians, the 23 million of us, that I will be your representative. I will be in your corner, and it's time for a change.
All right, let's take a quick commercial break here. We'll come back. I want to talk about some of the issues. I want to talk about Venezuela. I want to talk about temporary protected status for Haitians and other things along that line, as well as where this country is going, in your opinion. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are continuing our conversation with Alex Vindman, who is running to be the Democratic nominee for Senate against Republican Ashley Moody. You've mentioned a couple of times you're a first-time candidate. This is all new to you. It's also new to your family, and campaigns can be very hard on families. What conversations, give me an idea of what the discussions were like when you told your wife Rachel or talked to your wife Rachel about this? And also, your daughter just turned 15. That's a tricky age to have a 15-year-old while you're going to be traveling the state, you know, and the rest of it. What's been the reaction of your family?
It has been a major upheaval in our, somewhat quieter and more settled life. Jumping back into into service when we know we will be the target of lots of hate, all of the animus that Trump could muster, likely investigations, all these different challenges, has created quite a bit of upheaval. So, babe, I'm sorry that we're going back in, but I think the urgency of the moment requires us to come back and try to see what we could do to help.
All right, let's talk about some issues that you would, if you were in the Senate right now. So there's obviously a lot of talk among senators about not funding or putting restrictions on ICE. Talk to me about what you think the Senate must demand when it comes to continued ICE funding and DHS.
Over the course of most of last year, what we've seen is Trump cavalierly deploying ICE and troops. He's put National Guard and active duty into cities. And he's done that not with a law enforcement eye in mind, not to secure borders. That is an absolutely essential task of the executive branch, but really to harass a population and to harass minorities and vulnerable peoples. That's steadily escalated from abusing populations to murdering people in the street. It's a direct signal that the president, the vice president, the secretary of DHS have sent to ICE that they can get away with this, that they have blanket immunities, and that is not tolerable in the state. That is what I've witnessed serving in Moscow as an attaché. We need to have checks on, and for the protection of American citizens, we need to have checks on power, and that's fundamentally why I'm running. We need to make sure that ICE specifically is not masked, is not escalating, is properly trained, and is doing its law enforcement function, not abusing a population. My commitment is to provide that kind of oversight and not be a rubber stamp that Ashley Moody and so many other Republicans are signing on to. We need the system to work the way it's designed, with a proper check on power from the executive branch, on the executive branch, from the legislative branch. These things should be working in concert, not everybody just saying, yes, sir, may I have another.
Was the president right to go into Venezuela and take out Nicolas Maduro?
I don't think anybody is going to shed a tear for Nicolas Maduro. He is a heinous despot. We have hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans in the state that fled a Chavez-Maduro regime. My question is not about his actions and that our military performed flawlessly. It's about, what do we do next? Are we leaving this despotic regime in place just minus Maduro? Or are we going to follow through on what the president said, which is we're going to run the place? We tried that in the Middle East for 20. We had 20 years of involvement in the Middle East. That hasn't really worked out too smoothly for us. So my concern is that these things are not being well thought through. That the Secretary of Defense is not somebody that thinks through these problem sets very carefully. That the president is not somebody that thinks through these problem sets, and that we are creating chaos and potentially creating new crises in our own backyard. If I had confidence in this administration, if I had confidence in the cabinet to be able to think through these problems, that's one thing, but we don't have that. We're about to get involved in Iran. That looks like it's right on the corner. We've abandoned our friends, our traditional allies, and embraced our adversaries. This is the story of this administration. One of chaos, one of creating insecurity. That's what's on my mind.
Impeachment. You were, as I said earlier, the key figure in the first impeachment. He also went through a second impeachment. Both times the United States Senate ended up not convicting him. There is talk that if the Democrats take back the House in 26, that there may be a move to impeach Donald Trump again. As a senator, if articles of impeachment came to you, first off, do you think that is the right approach, having failed twice, to do it again? And how would you weigh all of that?
For me, it's when I look at something, I especially if it's something super complex, it's about doing the next right thing and doing that continuously. So for me as a senator, I would take a look at what the evidence is against the president. I want to understand, what the basis is of an impeachment from the House, and have that evidence put before me to make a decision. And I could tell you that I'm not going to make a decision based on politics. I'm going to make a decision based on merits. If I think that there's been a high crime or a misdemeanor, I will convict. But I'm not going to do this, or I won't dismiss just because it's a political ally. I'm going to do what I've always done throughout my career, which is stand against corruption and do what I think is right.
You also may get articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem. How would you weigh that?
It's going to be the same way. The role of a senator is to take a look at the evidence put before them and make a decision. My fundamental desire and my fundamental objective is to figure out how to deliver for Floridians. If I have an ability to check a system that's increasingly rigged against Floridians and to put some systemic fixes that could address the fact that we have the highest insurance rates in the country, I'll do that. Healthcare is another critical problem. We are failing our population here with making sure that they have access to affordable, high-quality healthcare. And then the absence of healthcare doesn't actually ruin lives, that a crisis means that you go bankrupt because you sought medical care. These are the problems that I'm trying to fix. I think if we fix a corrupt system that's broken and favoring the corporations, then we will inherently cut costs. I also want to check this Trump tax on Floridians, this tariff. That is something that needs to be addressed. So there's a whole host of problem sets that are immediately in front of us to deliver for Floridians. That's my commitment. The rest of it will, the what ifs, when they come, I'll evaluate them based on the merits.
Donald Trump has also been talking recently, not just recently, but more intensely recently, about having the Republican Party take over elections in multiple states. Yeah. How concerned are you heading into, as a candidate who is hoping to be on the ballot in November, that the Justice Department, that the Trump administration will not interfere in U.S. elections to try to rig them in a way that benefits him?
I think fundamentally, elections are the peaceful transfer of power. The majority of an electorate speaks their mind, determines who they want to represent them, and then the expectation is the system just plays out naturally and power transitions. I think that there is a very real chance that somebody might, I think the president might attack the system. We see that already unfolding. My commitment is to make my case to Floridians, a lot of them, there's 23 million of us, and make the case that I will be a fighter for Floridians in their corner. But I think with this in mind, I think that we have a very, very real chance of not just winning on the margins, but having a tidal wave of support go to brand the direction that we're taking as utterly wrong and to take us in a new direction. With that, that's not easy to steal.
We only have about 30 seconds. Has Donald Trump done anything that surprised you, that even you thought was beyond what he would do?
Yeah, I think the chaos and corruption is staggering.
When you talk about the corruption, you talk about how he and his family has financially benefited from the White House.
I think so, but it's really stealing from the poor to give to the rich. And that's not tolerable in our system. I think Floridians and Americans demand fairness, and they need somebody that's going to be a champion for fairness. And frankly, the one message I want to communicate is I want to be your fighter and to deliver for you, not for the ultra wealthy, not for the political class.
All right, we got to end it there. Alex Vindman, I'm sure you'll be back. We'll talk more. Thank you very much for coming in. All right, we'll be right back. Well, that's all the time we have today. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to contact me at jdefede@cbs.com. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.